Hello and welcome to my podcast on the biology of sex identity in humans. I'm going to go through a few important topics before I tie them together into a look at how individuals can be born as intersex. These will include a look at sex and reproduction in different species, the biological definition of sex, and how DNA plays a central role in this story. In biology, with an enormous variety of species, there's a huge variety of ways that sex works. There are an entire group of species with only one sex, such as these rotifers, or these lizards. In such species, the default is to consider all individuals females. The normal ideas of penises and vaginas don't always apply either. Many animals don't have such things at all. And in these Brazilian cave insects, it is actually the female that has a penis and penetrates the male. There's even one species with not one or two, but 7 different sexes. Even within animal species that have males and females, there's a lot of sexual variety. In clownfish, a dominant female controls a hierarchy of subordinate males. When the female dies, the most dominant male becomes female. This likely explains why Disney did not attempt 100% accuracy when creating Finding Nemo. Hyenas are also a social species where the female is dominant. Female spotted hyena's clitoris has evolved into a pseudopenis that is up to 7 inches long and is used as a sign of dominance. Because of all this variety in biology, we have a special definition of sex. In general, when two sexes exist in one species, one sex tends to produce reproductive cells that are large and do not move around much. These are called egg cells, and the producer is designated a female. The other sex produces small reproductive cells, sperm, that move around much more, and the producer of these cells is called a male. Even people who never take science after grade 10 are probably somewhat familiar with the idea that DNA is the code for life. This code is stored on actual molecules, which is where DNA gets its name, deoxyribonucleic acid. The details of its name are really only relevant to those who will study it in more detail in biology, but essentially this molecule is able to store program instructions in a manner sort of similar to how computers store their programming. Computers only have 2 letters in their most basic code, a 1 or a 0, but DNA has 4 such letters, which are called A, C, G, and T for short. All life on Earth contains DNA made of these 4 letters, and arranging them in different combinations is how we get the amazing diversity of life we see on Earth. The code to make a human contains about 6 billion such letters, give or take, 3 billion of which you get from your father and 3 billion from your mother. Because this is such a big number, we don't keep the 6 billion letters in just one big chain. Instead, we split it into 46 smaller chains of code we call chromosomes. So 23 chromosomes come from your mother and 23 from your father. Within each chromosome, there are many different kinds of instructions. The most understood is what is called a gene, and this is a section of DNA that instructs your cells how to make one particular version of one particular molecule. Because our bodies are very complex, it takes several genes to make one single structure in your body. For example, something as simple as the color of your eyes is the result of 12 to 18 genes working together. Our complexity means that there are many ways for the regular development of our bodies from a single cell to an adult to go wrong. If one of those genes is not working, or if one of these genes is turned off or on at the wrong time, or if one of those genes carries a bad set of instructions, or if one of those genes becomes damaged, or if one of those genes gets copied incorrectly, all sorts of things can go wrong. Because of all the different ways things can go slightly awry, it is very common for people to have small errors in the regular developmental pathways of different parts of their bodies. In fact, it's quite likely everyone has some errors in their development. Depending on the location and severity of the errors, these could result in birthmarks, fertility issues later in life, more serious health issues such as a hole in your heart, or an intersection of individuals. When our reproductive systems develop, the initial protogonads are more similar to female organs by default. There's a region of a particular chromosome, the Y chromosome, only males are meant to have, called SRY, that contains the code that activates these protogonads to become male. And then they start to develop and start releasing testosterone. This leads to the development of secondary sexual characteristics such as facial hair, an enlarged voice box, etc. If this SRY region is not present, or if it is not activated, then the protogonads become more feminine. They can only become working ovaries, however, if the genes that properly trigger estrogen development, estrogen is the female hormone, and release of estrogen are present. While both testosterone and estrogen are always present in all people, after the initial push towards testicular or ovarian development by a person's genes, it's their hormone ratio that is responsible for the full development of the reproductive system. Adult males will, on average, have a greater relative amount of testosterone than females. However, there is an extreme amount of variation, as how sensitive a body is to testosterone and estrogen is also a very important factor. This means that the vast majority of over 70 different ways intersex cases can occur is where the SRY is where it shouldn't be, maybe absent from the Y chromosome of an XY individual, or tacked onto an X chromosome in someone who is XX. Or, it can also happen when the signaling of the sex hormones gets screwed up. For example, some people who are XX, or genetically female, have extreme sensitivity to testosterone, which means even at what is normal testosterone reference range for a female, they will still start to develop more masculine characteristics. Other people who are XY can have androgen insensitivity, and so develop a physical appearance that is much more feminine, even including the extent of their genitalia. So, to sum up, there are many ways sex works in different species. Regular sex development in humans leads to either male or female individuals, but because of the nature of DNA and how our bodies, including our reproductive systems, develop, there are many ways that an individual can develop as intersex, just as all other organ systems are known to have a lot of variety.